G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Brass on Tap. Thank you so much for coming and joining me. I'm getting so excited because me and Bobby Shew were just talking offline, and he's telling me great stories. It is amazing to have him along. Obviously, before we get started, if you're new to the channel, please head over to YouTube. It's Brass on Tap page and check out the previous episodes. I've got some incredible guests on there that are just giving me all their information for your inspiration. So just get over there, check it out, see how you go. If you like it, let me know. If you got any suggestions of anyone that you would like me to try and get on, please send it over to brassontap at outlook.com. That'll be amazing, and I'll do my absolute best to try and get everyone on. But apart from that, oh, by the way, check out the previous episode with Oystein Barsvik as well. What an incredible tuba player and what an absolute gent. But let's not waste any time to get this started. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have Bobby Shew with us tonight. He is giving his time to come and chat to us. What can you say about Bobby Shew? Everyone loves him. Everyone goes to him whenever they need help, including the pros. He is someone that most people look up to. And yeah, let's just get him on. Bobby, thanks so much for joining me.
Hi, Benny. How are you?
Now, I was just saying, you are literally the go-to guy. If people talk about trumpet players, and there is not a conversation that I've ever had in my life that your name does not come up, Bobby. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on with us today. But obviously, it's
that much, do they?
Of course. Before we get into it, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, please, if you have, while we've got Bobby here, there's no determined time of what we're going to have Bobby here. So just get your questions in so I can relay them to Bobby and he can answer them for you. So Bobby, for me, can we just start a little bit? How you been going over this last year of craziness? And then maybe just dive into why trumpet, really? Like, how did that come about?
Well, which question do you want me to answer first?
Well, answer what you've been up to in the last year.
Well, one thing about this past year is that parts of it were not a shock to me because I've been teaching online for 21 years.
Of course.
I had one of my very dear friends, an American kid who's lived in Germany. His father was stationed over there, so he resided over there. His name is Gil Kaup. He's one of the top lead trumpet players in the Las Vegas area. But Gil is like a computer wizard. You know, he reviews new apps and things for computer companies and writes for Macworld and magazine and all these kinds of things. He's a genius when it comes to computers. He came to me one day and he said, "Bobby, you got to start teaching online." I said, "What do you mean?" I didn't even know what he was talking about. I was just kind of new to computers anyway, but he sat and showed me how to get into it, and we used iChat back in those days. That was the program, that's long gone, I guess, now. But anyway, I started teaching like little lessons here and there from kids that couldn't afford to fly to California. I was living in LA at the time, and so it kept expanding and expanding and expanding. And then I've been here. I moved here to New Mexico just short of 15 years ago. By that time, I was like hammered with students,
Yeah, wow.
And well, the thing is that, I have students worldwide. I have one kid that lives way up in the frozen north, way up in Norway, is way above the Arctic region up there. There's no trees or anything up there, and then I've got ones in South Africa and all over Japan and New Zealand and Australia and
incredible.
And people that can't afford to jump on an airplane and fly to California or New Mexico and take a lesson. All they got to do is just jump on the computer, and and take, you get, hour or two lessons. Sometimes a guy recently just bought 5 hours of lessons, and he'll spread them out over a period of probably a couple of months or something like that, But anyway, the whole thing is that when the pandemic hit on March the 10th, it was the announcement here, I was scheduled to get on a plane the next morning and fly to Oakland to do a concert near there at a college.
Oh, wow.
And I would be there for 3 days, and then 8 days in the Minneapolis area, and then on and on and on.
Yeah.
And my wife was freaking out. She said she didn't want me on that plane, and and I thought, so I got up at 2:30 in the morning and sent an email to the band director at this college. I said, John, I'm sorry, I'm not getting on that plane tomorrow, man. I just don't feel right about it. And so then I canceled that gig, and then I started looking at it, and I said I'm going to have to cancel a lot of gigs. So I just decided then and there to retire from traveling any further to perform. I did like 61 years on the road of playing. It was, I think I got the point, And here's the whole point, Benny, is that, I absolutely love to play with the greatest passion in the world, and it breaks my heart not to come out and play because of all of the friends I have worldwide. I mean, I know people, God, I can draw you a map of the United Kingdom if you want to.
Yeah.
I could probably, I might draw a map of downtown London, for you. But the thing about, I could maybe drive a taxi over there. The thing about it is I decided to stay home pretty much and concentrate just on teaching. And I teach pretty much every day. So, usually 4 to 6 hours a day teaching online. And I'm involved with 7 different universities. I do master classes, group classes online, even in Europe, universities, in a big one in Munich and so forth. So anyway, I'm like very active and very busy with this. I love trying to help people play, So the pandemic, it kind of stirred what I've been thinking about doing for a long time, which was retiring.
Yeah.
From traveling. It's just I love to play, but I hate airports and airplanes and noisy babies crying on airplanes and people that don't have no manners and stuff like that. And and hotels, handicapped rooms in hotels and stuff. I'm on a walker. I'm traveling with wheelchairs and stuff. So once you get health problems and you add that to the whole situation, it makes it much more difficult. And it was difficult for me. And so I decided to stay home. No, that's the basic thing. So the year didn't really totally upset me, other than the fact that I can't have a pint at one of my favorite pubs, and I can't sit there and hang with the mates that I know over there. So many friends. I stay in touch through email with Andy Greenwood and Craig Wilde and Simon Gardner and and Ian Darrington and Helen Hampton and all the Georgina Jackson and there's a million friends over there. I swear, it's like if they were all my kids, I couldn't afford them.
I mean,
but that's the point. Is that the answer to the first part of your question, and I'm doing that. And now, just to finish off a little thing, last fall, I had a friend of mine. He's a band director at a college in Illinois. And he sent me an email, and he said, Bobby, I'd like to have you as our guest artist for the festival that we're going to have, in next spring. And I said, well, John, unfortunately, I've decided to retire from traveling any further to perform, so I can't. Thanks for the offer, but I can't do it. He said, oh, no, you don't have to travel here. He said, send us the charts. We'll record, and we'll send you the tracks, and you can go somewhere in the studio and overdub your parts. And so that's what I'm doing. I just, matter of fact, got the final chart just this morning. I got
That's amazing.
the big, so like I've got a bunch of gigs booked.
Yeah.
And that I just sit in front of my computer, and I'm still a guest artist. And what we'll do is I'll do a virtual clinic at that festival, and then when we play the tracks, we'll play the first track, and then we'll talk about that tune and the arrangement, and we'll play the next one, and we'll talk about it, and it'll be a whole kind of thing. It's all virtual, of course, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But I mean, I'm sitting here scratching my head saying, like, who in the world would have thought that we would be technology to do this?
I know,
if
right?
somebody would have told me I was teaching a kid in South Africa a lesson on a computer 25 years ago, I would have told him, "What are you smoking?" You know?
It's so true though, and I mean, I think we're very lucky in this day and age, you know, to have this kind of technology. And I'm so glad to hear, Bobby, that we're gonna still hear you play, because you know, like it must have been one of the hardest decisions you made to stop traveling.
It was very heartfelt, and it's
Yeah.
still, I still have some tearful moments when I think of it, because there's nothing like going on the bandstand live with a bunch of, you know, like Craig Wild's big band and stuff, which I did a few years back, you know, and you know, and all of the youth bands over there, you know, Midland Youth, John Ruddock's band in Midland, and you know, Birmingham, and of course the Wigan Youth, and you know, my Nigel and all those. I think I've probably played every youth band in the entire youth. And I love it, you know, and I love being over there. I mean, I even had thought one time about, God, I wonder about moving to the United Kingdom, you know. There's some places over that I absolutely love, you know, but I couldn't do that. My wife wouldn't want to live over there, you know, and
well, we'd turn into the luckiest country in the world, let's put it that way, if you did.
Anyway, but I feel the same way about most of the countries I've been to. I love, you know, I spent so much time in Germany and Austria and Netherlands and places like that, teaching at the different schools, you know, and performing in jazz clubs and festivals and stuff, you know, and I mean, God, you know, and I mean, I have the majority of my heritage is Italian, believe it or not, you know, the name. The name Shew is actually a British name. It was my second stepfather. It was a stepfather's name. It's not a blood name for me. But you know, I want to go back to Italy again, you know, and I want to come back to Munich again, and but I'm not going to, you know. It's but you know, I mean, I've had a good run at it, and so as long as I can play a little bit and teach, you know, I have a beautiful studio here that I built. It's big enough for a big band. We can get a big band. It's 2,600 square feet. That's
wow.
It's about a little over 800 square meters. You know.
Well, let's do it. Let's get a big band in there sometime and live stream it somewhere. But get everyone. Yeah. I'll buy a ticket.
But you know, the thing is, we get some local guys just come over here on a Friday, and we distance and, you know, put on the masks.
Yeah, of course.
I got masks with a little hole punched in it so the mouthpiece goes through
okay.
There. And so we play, and we play for 2-3 hours just playing tunes, and we read some charts. And you know, I'm doing that, but so you know, it's not enough, but it's going to have to be for now, you know.
Of course. And just for the people out there that are thinking, Bobby's teaching, this is amazing, and I know you're a very busy man, do you have any slots available for people to still contact you for lessons?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Awesome. I can always get,
And they just go to your website for that, don't they?
Well, on my website there's a menu thing, and it's online lessons, and you go there, and then there's a info sheet on how to book and what the parameters are, and what's necessary. And then people, I have them tell me what they've got on their mind, or whether it's a chops thing. It's usually, I'm specializing more in I'm kind of like a science teacher now.
Yeah.
Uh, well, 46 years ago, Maynard Ferguson gave me a book on yoga breathing,
Mm-hmm.
and it and Bud Brisbois showed me how to use it on the
Wow.
trumpet, and within 10 days, I was playing stuff I never dreamt that I would ever be able to play. I had double C's were flying out of the horn, and I went,
That's
"What?
insane. 10 days. Wow.
Where, where's this book been?" And I mean, you throw the Arbin book away. Let's use this one. But the thing about it is, and Roger Ingram was he was the second kid I ever showed it to. He was 14 years old then, and I've shown it to numerous people worldwide. Everybody employs it to fit their own personal needs,
Yeah.
But what it got me into is I had a doctor studying with me who was the head of the medical school at University of Arizona in Tucson. He's a brilliant trumpet player too, by the way.
Yeah.
And uh, but I asked him, I said, Dave, can you explain why this respiratory system, and why does this breath work? And he gave me a book on a medical book on the respiratory system, how it works. And he said, just read this. And I thought, gee, you mean I got to read the whole book? I mean, there's no 25 words or less here.
Yeah.
But
Give me the shortened
but
version.
well, so I read the book and I started understanding what a diaphragm was and what the intercostal muscles were, and I started studying anatomy,
Mm-hmm.
And so it hit me in the head like, bong, there's a science to this whole thing.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, and I can tell you this, that the majority of the trumpet players that I've run into, even and including some very great trumpet players, virtuosos,
Mm-hmm.
fake names. I won't give them to you right now,
It's fine.
but but a lot. I know some guys that are just you'd swear they know everything in the world, but they don't. A
Yeah.
lot of people play the trumpet intuitively, but they don't really. If you don't know exactly what's going on with muscles and things and the respiratory system and how to breathe and how to support and chop muscles and everything, if you don't understand that, if something ever goes wrong, you have no clue on how to fix
Of
it.
course.
What happens is there's an awful lot of trumpet players walking around trying all kinds of tricks and methods and gadgets and things. The market is full of junky trinkets and gadgets that trumpet players will buy so they don't have to practice or read a book,
Yeah.
you know. But I got into the science of the body, the facial muscles and the nerves and things, and how the brain records patterns and neuromuscular patterns and stuff. And once you start having science to underlie everything, you get predictable results from people, and you take away all of the mystery. And so that's not necessarily the music, but the point being is that somebody that doesn't know how to approach their connection with the instrument properly is going to have issues.
Yeah. Massive.
And like Wayne Bergeron, for instance, who's one of the most profound lead trumpet players on the planet, of course,
Yeah.
But I heard him play when he was 15. I was judging his high school band at Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa, California. I was
Wow.
on Louis Bell's band, and we were there playing at this festival, and his band came out, and there's this little tomato-faced kid in the back row, like playing the pants off of these high ridge things,
Yeah.
And it turned grew up in what they call the DCI. That's the Drum Corps International program. That's the kids that get out there and do the military marching and
Mm-hmm.
formation stuff. And Wayne grew up in that, and he was playing a double C at 13 years old. I
Wow.
found out, but he did it only just by muscular, like.
Yeah.
He'd look at that trumpet and say, "Double C, you better come out of there."
Rip it out.
It was like threatening it, But the thing about it is, and a lot of people learn to play by physical exertion, and there is physical exertion. Anybody that tells you there's not is really got their head up the backside, big time. But
yeah,
but the idea is, if like you're playing on a soccer field, you got to kick the ball to get it in the goal.
Yeah,
you can't just wish it in there, Oh, you have to kick it, but you don't have to punch your foot through the ball or break a leg or something like that. And there's that point where when people don't have that, they don't maximize their efficiency factors in their body and when they play. So if they don't know how, then they try everything under the sun, buying gadgets and muscles and everything else. I've been around guys that used to, Bill Chase, when I was on Woody Herman's band about 1 million years ago, Bill Chase used to have a set of weights on the bus, and they would roll around above my head up there, barbells and stuff, and Bill would get out and lift weights thinking it was going to make him strong. Well, what it can do is it can make you weak, because you can get very muscle bound. The muscles in your body can get very tight from all that excess weightlifting and stuff, and it doesn't help your trumpet playing a bit. I mean, look at Greg Gisbert. Here's a guy he got a small body. He was born with a small body but a huge brain.
Yeah.
And how he can get that huge brain inside that small body. I don't know. But look at this little guy. He's one of the greatest trumpet players on the planet.
Yeah.
Not only he can play lead trumpet as good as anybody, he can play above double C, no problem, and he'll stand next to anybody playing bebop, and he'll kick your butt right out of the county, And so you don't have to. I've known a jillion trumpet players over the years, and females too. Look at Georgina.
Oh, monster, yeah.
Got chops I mean, I've seen her stand next to Arturo and scare him to death.
Yeah. And she's a great singer as well. So,
and she was 13 when she started studying with me with Wigan band.
Yeah.
13 years old. I watched that kid grow up, and I'm so pleased to see the success she has. She's a delightful kid too. She's a delightful human being. And,
if you haven't heard of Georgina Jackson, everyone, go check her out. She's amazing.
Oh yeah, Romolo. That was her.
That was very, very true. Yeah.
But the whole point I was just trying to say is that there's such a value to the science that underlies, and once you get to where you understand how to maintain your body and how to develop it in the proper way, then the music can come, and you can do that. The music is not necessarily science; it's emotion.
No. Yeah.
Anyway, see, you can tell I kissed the Blarney Stone, eh?
Yeah. Hey, you said you didn't because it was too dirty.
And I was about a foot. My head was about a foot from it, and I could smell it from there. But I think all you do is look at it, and you get the gift of gab.
Yeah. We got a few people in here, Bob. So we've got Mario Concetto has come along, and he has asked whether we can know how can I do breathing or the hatha yoga in one fast movement. Mario, we'll definitely get to that at some point. I think it's probably the most requested question of you, Bobby, on that one.
Boy, and everybody wants me to answer it in 25 words or less.
I know. Maybe if you get a lesson, it'd probably be easier.
Like, why ask me how to hit a home run or how to fly?
Christoph Gomes has dropped in. He said it's an absolute dream to be here. Matt Roberts dropped in. He says King. Again, Christoph Gomes has said, "Hey Bob, play one Carino Brazil or reggae Jamaica for please, my dear." I don't think Bobby's going to do any playing during this, mate. But thank you for the requests. Craig Wells dropped. Oh, here we go. Brilliant. Craig Wild's dropped in. He says, "Hey, Bobby, you still ripping out those bottom C's? Much love."
Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. Let me show you. Let me show you something. Only Craig would ask that. I wanted to show you. This is part of the UK right here. I'm going to show you.
Go on then.
So sometimes I'll do it. A student will come to a lesson. I'll say, "Let me hear you play a low C," and this guy will have his gold chains on and oiled chest and his muscular crap. And I say, "Let me hear you play a low C." Low C. I'm the lead player. I don't play low C's. He says, "It's not an important note." I said, "Well, it's on my towel."
Very good.
And yeah, now that is Marston's low-calorie beer over there in England. And I was in a pub someplace, I don't remember what town it was in, and I happened to go up to the bar to sit down and get a pint, and I saw this low C towel at the bar, and I said, "Oh my God, I gotta have." And I asked the bartender, I said, "Can I buy that from you?" He said, "Why do you want that?" I said, "Well, it's hard to explain, but I said I can use it in teaching." And he said, "Well, I've got a stack of them in the back, and you can have them all." So
Brilliant.
he gave me about these low C towels. Maynard had one in his case till the day he died.
Oh, did he really?
So, yeah, I gave one to him. So I go to the clinic and I say to in a master class or in a private lesson, I say, and the kid says, "It's not an important note." I said, "It's on my towel. It must be." Well, let me hear you play a low C. But yeah, I'm ripping down to the low C's grade still.
Al King's dropped in and said The Godfather. Marcus Roberts has come in and says, "Hi, Bobby. Great seeing you here. Stay well, stay safe." We got quite a few people in here. It's great. Harry Nitschkamp it says hello from Florida.
Wow.
Yeah, so great. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Get your questions in. There's a few questions here, Bobby. Obviously, we got the yoga one, but there's one here from Matt Roberts. He says, could Bobby talk about the Bob Kerno-Matheny Big Band album? It's one of his favorite albums of all time. Bobby's blow on Minuano is stunning. Thanks for all the wisdom, Bobby. I mean, it's, for me, I got to agree with Matt Roberts. It is one of the most well played, like, it's just that your solo on Minuano just sort of flows. It belongs, if you know what I mean. Like, I don't think there could have been any other solo that went in there, in my mind. So,
it's, I don't know. I just got lucky. I don't know. I mean, but I don't believe in luck. But the thing about it is, Bob Kernow he's a special kind of a writer, and he doesn't write easy things.
Yeah.
Everything he writes is going to challenge you. And Bob is a very particular man too. And he asked me to organize that band. I mean, I was the contractor on the thing as well. So the fix, we call him over there.
Yeah.
But Bob asked me to organize a band for him, and so I did. And he had a couple of people that he wanted, especially in the rhythm section and so forth, and whatever. But he came to the charge to LA, and we booked 2 days of 2 4-hour sessions each of 2 days, or no, for 4 days. We rehearsed. My God, we pounded our brains out. we rehearsed charts, and then he figured out what he wanted to change, and he took it back up to. He lives up in Washington State, kind of up in the woods up by Spokane, Washington. He took the charts back up there and made some revisions, and then we came back down a little bit later, or maybe a month or so, 3 or 4 weeks later, and he booked 2 days of rehearsal and 2 days of recording, and each day had 2 4-hour sessions. And I'm telling you, we rehearsed that stuff until we were blue in the face, or blue and red in the face, because it was hard stuff.
Yeah.
Minuano. I mean, first of all, I really have a great admiration for Pat Metheny's music and his skills and everything. And he's a very unique individual. And his brother Mike is a brilliant trumpet player too. You know, a lot of people don't know that Pat's older brother Mike is what a great player he is. But Mike never really wanted to go out and do a big career like Pat did, you know. But anyway, it was really a lot of hard work to do that album. But I'm telling you, when we finished it and I sat back and listened to that, I thought, my God, this is one of the greatest projects I think I've ever been involved in.
It still is. I think it's amazing. Yeah,
it is, you know, and it's just, you know, I mean, I get tired. I mean, I wheeze just thinking about it. You know, there were issues with that album, and I probably shouldn't even. We had to. This trumpet section initially was myself, Wayne Bergeron, Buddy Childers, Don Rader, and I think Ron Stout. And Buddy Childers he'd had a bit of a brain aneurysm type of a problem. Oh, wow. You know, he had a glandular issue in his head, and he was getting on in years, and he dropped down. So when we recorded everything, there were some problems with Buddy's parts, and we had to strip them. And after the album was completely recorded, Wayne Bergeron and I took turns going in and overdubbing Buddy's parts, you know, and cleaning that up. It was a shame, you know, that to have to do that because, you know, I was on Maynard Ferguson's band with Buddy Childers back before I was a lead player. And
of course.
And you know, I used to ask Buddy, how do you play those high notes? And he'd tell me completely the wrong thing. You know?
You didn't know that at the time, though.
I know. He told me to push my belly out towards my belt buckle every time I tried to play, and I tried to do that, and I got a double hernia right off the bat. Thanks, buddy. And then it was after that I got Maynard gave me the book, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that's the thing about that album is that. Well, no, I'm not going to say that. I won't say that. No, never mind.
Okay. If I can organize it, Bobby, do you mind? I think I had a clip here somewhere. If I can see if I can get it I'd actually did a clip for people to listen to Minuano. I would just have to see if I can come back. Yeah. Let me see if I change.
But I haven't heard it in probably 20 years, maybe.
Well,
something. I can't remember the last.
Give me 2 secs. If I use this one, I might be able to just drop it in here if I can find it for everyone, because I personally think everyone needs to hear it. It's such beautiful playing. It's just before your solo and works into your solo.
You're not going to play the. Yeah, that's long.
Yeah, it's about 8 minutes, 8:50.
It is. Yeah, I go get a sandwich while you're doing
that.
Yeah,
okay.
You know?
Well, this one will last about a couple of minutes, but if this starts, then we'll go with that. Let's see. Technology sometimes doesn't work, but let's see what happens. Yeah, Bobby, it's such a great solo.
Man, I couldn't play that solo now for a truckload of $100 bills.
You one of my greatest quotes that I ever heard when I was younger that you said was, "You've got to miss notes to find out how to get them," and it's
Exactly. And that's absolutely true.
yeah,
And it's something I said before on other interviews and things, and I've written about it in articles. But one of the real biggest flaws in music education worldwide is that it goes back in history, civilization, back to the early days of uh, the courts of
yeah,
Europe and so forth. But the court trumpeter back in those days, first of all, you didn't have Yamaha or Colicchio or,
yeah,
you know, Dave Monet to build you a horn. When he finished putting shoes on a horse, he'd make you a trumpet,
yeah,
or if you had a rhinoceros, you'd rip the horn off of him or something
yeah,
like that. But and the mouthpieces and stuff. But they made such a big deal about missing notes, about poor performances, and it came through, from the European orchestras and things, chamber groups, came through military bands and everything, and came into the North America. And kids go into, they buy a trumpet and they sit down and they're going to take their first lesson, and they may get a lousy sound and have all kinds of problems, breathing and embouchure, setting issues.
mhm,
I mean, the list goes on and ad infinitum. But the only time that they get commented is when they miss a note,
yeah,
you know, and they put what happens. And I've talked about this a million times. Our emotions and on our brains and our bodies are all connected, you know,
mhm,
and so like you, when you make a child, you invalidate a person, make him frightened about anything or something like that. Bobby, that's an A natural, not an A flat, or
yeah,
something like that. It's like, oh, the kid withdraws and a part of his brain changes and he goes into the fear thing, the amygdala
yeah,
part of the brain. And all these kids grow up in the music education programs with the band director pointing at them and screaming and hollering about missing notes. Even if they sound out of tune and get a lousy sound on the horn, they're allowed, but they miss a note and it's a big deal. It's like give me a
yeah.
break,
It's like, come on.
And the point about it is, I've said this is the example that I use quite often. I mean, in the game of basketball, we have people like Shaquille O'Neal
Hmm.
and and Michael Jordan and people like that who are brilliant. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But you see, when they were first learning to throw a basketball at a net, if every time they missed the net, if somebody took a stick and hit them on the back,
Yeah,
you know,
they would have given
we
up.
would never we would never have basketball
No.
stars. And the same sort of thing with a lot of the reasons why a lot of musicians never achieve the things that they could achieve is because their whole heads are locked into this state of fear and worry. They go in the practice room and they practice incorrectly because they're practicing, oh God, I hope I don't miss a note,
Yeah.
you know. Go ahead and miss the damn thing. Because when you miss a note, there is a reason for it.
Hmm.
It doesn't happen, the clouds parted or something like that. You know, it wasn't like your stars weren't misaligned or anything. It wasn't just bad luck. There's a reason for it, and there's a checklist. It's either the feeling in your lips is not quite right, so you didn't warm up properly, perhaps,
Hmm.
or you're not maintaining stability in there. Secondly, it could be in your breathing, the way you're controlling your airstream. That could be one. It's not, maybe you're not controlling the release of the air into the cup. You're not in your tone production mechanism as well. Maybe you're trying to, hit a home run with a banana. It's the wrong mouth. And there's always a scientific reason that underlies when you miss a note. So once you know how to go through the checklist and figure out, spot check what all the items are.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking about my breathing, or oh, I rushed through my warm up, or oh, you know, oh, I got a new one of these or something, you know. But, but you see, the point about it is that it's possible to solve every problem, but you have to be allowed
Yeah.
to miss the note in order to find out. Then you go into the practice room and you use the practice session as a means of overcoming your weaknesses in your playing and resolving these mysteries, you know,
Yeah.
so to speak. And the beautiful thing about it is that, and why I stick as close to possible and as possible in science in my teaching, is because with science, you know, it's not like, I don't tell the guy when he's doing a landscape painting or something, I say, the tree looks, make the tree a little thick. No, that's
Yeah.
his opinion.
Yeah.
That's his, but, you know, I'm saying, you know, why don't you use this thing? It's called a paint brush instead of your finger, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's,
You know what
you completely, you nailed it right on the head. And I think there is too much focus on the perfect performance, because sometimes the perfect performance is not fun to listen to to me
That's
anyway.
right. Well, first of all, there's no such thing as perfection.
Oh, exactly.
It can't possibly be. And if you actually define perfection, there's nothing that can be improved about it. So you'd never ever get out of bed. It's like you would take another breath in your life. You'd have absolutely no reason to take one more breath. Like life would stop
Completely.
if perfect. So don't even try for it. You know, I'll show you something that I show people quite often. It's not. It's like if my. It's not really a method books per se, but it's called a basic study guide that I've written. And here's something that's very interesting. It says the pursuit of excellence is gratifying and healthy. That means constantly trying to improve.
Yeah.
You know, and then it says the pursuit of perfection is frustrating, neurotic, and a terrible waste of time. You know, and there's no truer words in the world.
No, they're yeah. It's completely nailed it right there. That's amazing.
You know. And I'm reading a book now. It's called Side by Side. It's written by a brilliant trumpet teacher and player in America. Whiff Rudd is his name. He teaches at Baylor University in Waco, Texas. And Whiff is a brilliant man. And but in this book, there's an article, there's a statement. I don't have it verbatim right now, but I was just reading it yesterday, and it says by this guy. Was back in the late 1800s or something like that, a scientist. But he said, in any field of study, there are all kinds of methods, millions of methods, perhaps. He says, anybody that just uses only methods without principles underlying them is good.
Yeah.
And so I looked up the word principles in the dictionary just to make sure. And it's basically a piece of fact, a truth. It is science, you know?
Yeah.
So it comes right back to what I was saying, you know? We need to, I mean, it's too late. I'm not going to get it done in my lifetime, but all I can do is try to encourage my students to understand the science as best as they can, so they got a fighting chance.
Absolutely.
To maximize their playing skills, you know, and quit listening to all of the bullshit that, did I say?
Nah, it's fine. It's fine.
The point about it is that there's an awful lot of false information that's dispensed around through pedagogy and stuff like that. And I know too many so-called trumpet teachers that don't know how the thing even works, you know, and they open up the Arbin book and say, "Don't you miss a note, little Bobby."
It sounds like you've heard that before, weirdly.
Get checked.
Before we continue, Bobby, we've got a few people in here. Actually, we've got quite a few people. Fernando Rodriguez says, "Hi, Bobby. Greetings from Colombia."
Oh, great. Yeah.
Anthony Jones has come in and said, "Great to see Bobby looking in such good health. Complete legend." So we got loads of people. There's people from Spain, Manuel from Spain, Austria, Dit Marfana. Richard Owens come in and he says, Bobby, got into big bands in the 80s, saw you in Hampshire where I was working. You ended up on the show with you, the trumpet section, and two drinkers at the bar. And they were Derek Watkins and Alan Downey. I was on the front row and you played Trumpeter's Holiday, have worn hearing, oh, it went away. Let's bring that back. You wore hearing aids ever since. What a night and what a hero. Thanks for everything. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that, Rich.
Oh, man, you know, and just recently, you probably know that Craig Wild's band.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah, definitely.
You know, and the fact that Alan Downey wrote charts for me the week before he passed away.
It's insane to think about.
I know. And I've been at bugging Alan. I stayed at his home and a lot of times, and we played a million things together. He knew exactly where the best fish and chips was in the whole country. You know? But you know, I kept saying, Alan, write some charts for me. You know. Oh, get on! Well, get on with the good. And then I got a package in the mail, and it was these charts. You know, I think there's 3 of them there, and they were the last things Alan wrote. And by the time the charts had gotten to me, he had already died. And he wrote them like boom, 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 put them in the mail, and then went to bed and died. You know,
wow.
I thought, holy crap, you know. And the scores sat in my home on a shelf for a lot of years. I didn't know. I mean, should I copy them? What should I do? You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I you know, I was not too long ago cleaning up some areas, put a new bookcase in and all that, and I found those charts, and I thought, let's get them over to England. That's where they belong.
Got to be played.
So and Craig got Richard Sidwell to copy them, you know, and present them. I was so thrilled that they did that. You know, Alan, I can never lose the feelings in my heart for Alan Downey, man. He was an amazing human being. You know, he could do things that nobody else could do. I mean, social things. You know, he could walk into a bar fight and ease it all. And, let's have a pint. Yeah, come on. Next thing, turn in love. You know.
Yeah.
Now I've seen him do it. You know.
Wow. It was, as you said, amazing human being, amazing person, and we were so lucky that you granted Craig the opportunity to play them, because what charts, they were amazing charts. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
And is there any chance down the future you might play them, maybe record them with at home?
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay. It's just a question. I forgot to say, I didn't see this one, Matt Roberts. I do apologize. He asked, this is about the Minuano solo. He says, I've always wanted to know if this solo was played live or with the band, or was it overdubbed?
It's live. I don't do overdub solos.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. They're live. We've got loads of people on here. Everyone, I will try and get your questions in. If you, if not, I will. Oh, there we go. Mike Thomas has a question. Thanks for joining, Mike. Mike goes, hi, Bobby. Wonderful to see you. Please, can you talk about your experiences in the Hollywood studio bands, particularly the story about the session with the double tonguing you were booked on?
Oh, God. Where did he hear that story?
Who knows?
Well, I've told the story because what a lot of people, you know, I try to be very honest about who and what I am. You know, I'm not a very good trumpet player because there's a difference now. I think I'm a much better musician than I am a trumpet player.
Gotcha.
And a trumpet player, you know, somebody like Alan Bazzuti can play the living hell out of the trumpet. I mean, he can do things that nobody else on planet Earth can do.
Yeah.
And you know, there are some people who would just play the trumpet so beautifully. Doc Severinsen, for instance, look at that guy. He can do stuff that's inhuman. And there are numerous ones, you know, classical guys and all that. They can play double tongue, triple tongue, all this stuff. Not me. I never learned to do that. I never had a trumpet lesson in my life. There was one trumpet teacher in my hometown, and he hated jazz and he hated me. and I grew to hate him. Well, I never hated him. He was just close-minded fool, you know.
Yeah.
But he tried to discourage me from playing jazz and stuff like that, but there was no stopping me. You know, it's like telling a man-eating tiger, "Don't eat any more people." Ha! You want to, but the point is, I was doing a session for some stupid television movie, and I was the only trumpet on the thing. And I turned a page, and there was some double tonguing stuff there. And I went, "Uh-oh," because normally, when you're in a section on and you get a part that looks like, okay, I'm not up for this.
Yeah.
You pass the guy next to you that can do it. It doesn't matter who does it; just get the thing done.
Yeah.
To keep your ego out of it. Like, oh, I'm going to do it anyway. Well, now it's 7 takes later, you know,
Yeah.
and still sound like crap on it. And the contractor's just taking your name, X'd it out off of his work list, you know. So anyway, I saw this thing and I tried to do it a couple of times and I just shit all over it, you know, and it was terrible. The writer, this Nathan, whatever, he was a real pain in the ass anyway. And he said, "Is there a problem?" And I said, "You know, man, it's not my bag." Well, I shouldn't have said that. Well, he threw the baton at me. And then he called a break. And the contractor was Gus Klein. It was Manny Klein's son.
Oh, wow.
He was a French horn player. And Gus is like, "Bobby, what are you doing?" I said, "What do you put me on a session like this for?" But see, the fixer doesn't know what's going to be on the music, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But then the whole session was fine. Just this one stupid piece, you know? And so I had to go out and talk to the leader and all that. And I said, "Look, I'm not a classical trumpet player. This is something that Malcolm McNabb or somebody should be doing, you know?"
Yeah.
But don't throw batons at me. That's not going to make it easier for me. So I went back in there and I said, "Now I got to go in here and see if I can walk on water now, you know, and perform a miracle, you know." And I went back in there and I'm looking at that part and I'm going, "How in the hell am I going to play this, you know?" There's 90 people and there's a big string section and everything, one trumpet.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there thinking, how in the hell am I going to do this? And so I remember something popped into my head. And I remember when I was 18 years old and I first went to New York City, one of the things I used to do is go around and listen to Kenny Dorham and Roy Eldridge and Dizzy and all those people live, you know. And I noticed that, like Kenny Dorham especially, and Roy Eldridge, they used a lot of alternate fingerings for things. You know, Lou Mitchell and guys do, but they do things like this, you know. You know.
Yeah.
And so I went, wait a minute. And so I put the mute in the horn, and I went. And I practiced the part with the alternate fingerings. And the guy comes back in, he says, "Are we ready, Mr. Shew?" And I says, "Yes, sir, we are." And everybody looked at me like, what, he learned a double tongue in 4 minutes? You know?
They probably thought you did.
Yeah. And so he rolled it, and I nailed it the first time through.
Amazing.
And he thought I double tongued.
Amazing.
And everybody in that room thought I had double tongued it. Nobody knew I was using alternate fingerings, you know? And I went, that's bullshitted my way through that one, you know?
That's definitely a fake it to make it moment, isn't it?
But the thing about it is you have to think on your feet sometimes,
of course.
You know? You just have to, and you can't, if I sat there and got freaked out, just frightened and went, "Oh my God, oh my career," I would never have been able to think about it. You can't think in a position like that. And they say, "Okay, let's see now."
Al King brought up a great thing. It's probably with someone that you've done quite a lot of recordings with, and he says he's got a great CD of Bobby Shew and Chuck Finley together.
Oh yeah, that's trumpets no end. That was quite a project, you know. I mean, uh, it's out of print now, unfortunately, but man, there's some great memories there, you know. And you know, I got Chuck he was just out of high school. I got him on Buddy Rich's band when he was 18 years old, and
Amazing.
quite an interesting thing. And he was so nervous the first night he got Buddy. He didn't play well his first night, and Buddy fired him the first night. Chuck never knew that, and maybe if he's listening today, it'll be the first time he find out that he got fired. But Buddy heard him play, but Chuck was like nervous and a little sloppy, and wasn't quite sure how to play with Buddy and all of that, you know. And he was
Yeah.
just a kid, you know. But I had heard him play, and I knew what a good player he was. You know, I'd heard him play when he was 16 years old, and I went, "Holy crap, this guy's unbelievable!" And so that's why I got him on the band. But Buddy came to me afterwards, and he said, "This band is not a proving ground for high school dropouts. Get that kid off the band and get somebody in here that can play." And
Wow.
and I said, "Buddy, he's just nervous his first night, you know, and plus he's going to be fine." And I said, let me work with. I'm going to do a sectional or something, and I'll work with him. And Buddy said, "Well, when we open in Peabody, Mass on Monday night, he better have his stuff together, and he's going, and the whole section's going with him." And I thought, well, that's typical of Buddy, you know, and his threats. But I told the guys, I said, "Bring your books tonight. We're going to have a rehearsal tomorrow." And we went to Bob Jewell's studio in New York City. This is where it was. And we rented the studio, and we had about a 3-hour sectional rehearsal.
Wow.
We marked all the parts, and we just heard ourselves. We showed Chuck, "No vibrato there. Don't take that up. Play this." And we went to the gig that night,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody in the band was turning around saying, "What the hell happened in that trumpet section?" You know, all of a sudden we sounded like the Marine band or something up
Yeah.
there. We were like tearing it up, you know, and 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 that was it. And then Chuck stayed on the band, and then the rest is history. And look at what a career he's had. My God, you know,
Exactly.
and,
Um,
he's the most he's you know. And one thing about Chuck is that, you know, he's perfect pitch, which uh, is not necessarily always a benefit. It can be a problem in a very imperfect world that we live in.
yeah.
But Chuck, uh, he can hear anything. But you know, the interesting thing about it, he doesn't read chord changes. You know,
I
he
didn't
just
know
plays
that.
straight to the chord, and he just plays whatever. It doesn't matter. You put anything there, and he just plays it. You know, he's a phenomenal trumpet player in so many ways. You know, and I'm still in touch with him. You know, he's like a brother to me, a son almost. You know. And when we did that album, Chuck's mother looked at the two of us on that cover, and she said, "I don't remember raising Bobby. Was he one of my kids? Because we looked like brothers."
Yeah. That's brilliant.
He's a great kid, dude. I love Chuck, man. I swear, you know.
He's got a lot of fans over here and around the world as well. So we all love Chuck.
Wonder why, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Bobby, just before we keep going on some of these questions, just for my interest and I'm sure everyone else's as well. What were some of your really strong influences that you had when you were younger, like that really sort of changed your life and turned you into, well, being able to be one of the most versatile commercial trumpet players, really, like being a lead player and a soloist is quite unheard of. Like usually you specialize in one or the other, and you managed to master both. So,
Well, the first jazz trumpet player I ever heard. Well, my mom played a '78 record called James Session, Harry James.
mhm.
I only heard it a couple of times. It didn't really, because I was not playing the trumpet yet, but they played it around the house once in a while. But when I took up the trumpet, I was 10 years old, and I was just playing, you know, things, school stuff, marching, but, you know, beginning band stuff. Now, I was never in the beginning band. I went into the first day and I could already play. well enough so they put me in the advanced band. My stepfather, Mr. Shew, had played the trumpet for a couple of years, and he didn't know anything, and he picked up a trumpet and sounded god awful on it. But he he showed me how to read and the fingerings, and I was smart enough to remember them.
Wow.
So I could immediately read parts and not miss notes.
That's
the
great.
first day.
Yeah.
I had a very natural inclination towards music. I just did. I mean, it was just, the trumpet was the easiest thing in the world for me to play. I thought, well, this is the easiest thing. This is too easy. Basketball is much harder than this, you know. Yeah. But my first jazz trumpet player I heard on a recording was Don Fagerquist, who was the soloist, Les Brown band, and then he became the guy with the Dave Pell Octet for years and years. Beautiful lyrical player, could not miss a chord change if you paid him to, you know?
Yeah.
He was the first influence, and then Chet Baker,
Yeah,
and then Kenny Dorham.
Oh, wow.
And then as I got older, and then I started listening to people. One of the two guys that I heard when I was about, I would probably have been about 14 or 15. I heard Sam Donahue playing with Stan Kenton's band around the Cuban Fire era, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe that was 15 or 16 then, I don't remember. But Sam Donahue was playing lead trumpet and soloing.
Right.
And the other that was influenced in that way was Benny Bailey. And Benny Bailey I'd heard with, you know, different bands, but then especially with the Clark Boland band. And here's the lead player and playing great solos too.
Yeah.
And so I kind of grew up playing jazz first. I didn't know what lead playing was about.
Mm-hmm.
But I was playing jazz and playing gigs at 12 years old. And but I was always first chair in every school band, you know. And then there was no jazz in the schools when I was back in those days. So we tried on my spare time to put together a band and buy some charts and get together and stuff, you know. But I just played the top part.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know like what lead playing really was about, but I listened to records. And so I listened, you know, I heard people like Snooky with Basie's band and Conrad Gazzo and Al Porcino with Kenton's band and players, you know, the best lead players in the business, you know. And I learned it strictly by ear, you know. I just listened there and I tried to copy what I heard.
Did you do that for your soloing, your jazz soloing as well? Was it, or did you? Yeah. Wow. Amazing.
I bought a piano when I was 14 years old and tried to play chords, but I didn't know what they really were.
Yeah.
There was no like, you know, I finally bought a fake book and tried to learn tunes like that, like looking at chords, but
yeah,
the fake books back in those days were terrible. They didn't have hardly anything, you know, but I didn't really know chord changes. I played strictly by ear too.
Wow, amazing.
And then when I was 18, I went to the first Stan Kenton workshop, stage band workshop in Indiana. And I was just out of high school, and there I took theory classes, you know, with, I had a couple of good teachers there, and I went for a couple of years. I had Russ Garcia was one of the teachers for me, you know, and
yeah.
I still have the workbooks from that in my files over here. I still have but I started figuring out what chord changes were and stuff like that, and I'm still at this point not the greatest at reading chord changes, but my ear is good, and I can read chord changes. I watch bass progressions, and I can tell the difference, you know, between major, minor, and so forth.
Yeah.
And I basically know what they are. It's just when you get into all of the trick chord changes, you know. When I was on Horace Silver's band, you know, Horace writes all these complex kind of things. I had to take the charts home and sit at the piano and figure them all out until I heard them. And then Blue Mitchell never read chord changes either. You know, I mean, Blue played by ear, and he told me when he was with Horace, uh, Horace would sit, he'd find a piano during the day, and Horace would play the changes over and over again until Blue heard him, and then he would play by ear, you know.
Wow.
So,
I mean, is there
yeah.
something to be said about just knowing the color of a chord? So when you see that chord, you know that the color of it, so you can solo over it.
Well, yeah, a chord represents a sound.
Yeah.
So music is an ear thing. It's not a visual.
Yeah.
Like, one of the problems we talked about, problems in music education, but they have too much visual and not enough ear.
Yeah.
You know, they should close the book and have the kids play something inside of themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the benefits of why jazz music is such a beautiful thing, because you're playing what you sense emotionally inside of yourself rather than looking at a page and hoping you don't miss a note. Like, once again, same ugly shit again, But the thing about it is that there needs to be a much better balance with somebody learning to play. Visual, yes, you need to be able to read, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, if you look down and see G minor 7 on a page, well, it'll tell you that you play a Dorian scale in the key of F.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if you play just a Dorian scale, you're playing a scale. Where's the music,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
The idea is what I used to do when I stopped the piano and started getting onto it. I would go to the piano and I would play, if it said G minor 7, I would play F minor 7 on the piano with my sustain pedal down and let it ring. And then I'd pick up my trumpet and take it up a step, and I'd play whatever I could hear that fit with that chord.
Yeah.
Then I'd pound the chord again and I'd play again. And I would pound the chord and play, like cadenza kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that way you're improvising over a sound of a chord, rather than just saying, oh, use this scale, use that scale, use this scale, use that scale. And with all respect, I taught for Jamie Aebersold for 38 years, and I learned an awful lot there. But I also learned that I wasn't going to teach the same way that Jamie wanted me to teach, because when I had a combo, yes, I made him learn the chords, yes,
Mm-hmm.
but I also made him turn the page over too and see what, and I believe very strongly in the balance between, the ear is the most important thing to play by ear. I don't care who you are, whether it's John Coltrane or Charlie Parker or Dizzy Gillespie, we play by ear. The best players always play by ear.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can learn this stuff, if you can educate your ear, then you have a little bit of an upper hand. But if the only thing you do when you improvise, for instance, is if you're thinking about scales and not missing, oh, gee, no. You're miles away from the truth. You see, and why I said to you earlier, I'm not a very good trumpet player because I never played the Arvin book or a Clark book or the Schlosser. I never did any of those books. I have them over there on that shelf, and they're all brand new. It's got dust on them, and they're all. But the thing about it is, when I opened up I never had those books as a kid. I just played along with records, And because I was playing my first gigs at 12 years old, I was out on the bandstand playing along with rhythm section, and I could hear things, and I'd hear a tune, and I'd be able to play it back. I had a pretty good memory ear thing, so I could hear a tune played a couple of times, and I could play on it, So
yeah.
And that's those the two things that I think are the most relevant gifts for any musician, no matter what the genre is, but especially in the field of jazz. The two things that you would hope that you would be born with as gifts would be, first and foremost, would be a good relative pitch ear, not a perfect, but a relative pitch ear. So if you played ba 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 da da da, I could start on any note on the trumpet and play that.
Exactly.
Song.
Yeah.
You dig? If it may not apply to straight note chaser, but I might have to work. But the point being that you play by ear, and I can play, I can play Autumn Leaves in any key. I don't care what key and like if you call a complicated tune like Anthropology or something, it's a rhythm changes tune in a concert B flat. It's normal. To play that line in all 12 keys would take a little bit of woodshedding,
Yeah.
But why would I do that? That would be an ego trip to try to prove some ego thing to myself. I mean, it's a waste of time, but I can play rhythm changes in all 12 keys, not as well as my three or four favorite keys.
Yeah.
But, but the truth about it is that it's how you have to learn is by playing by ear. It can't be all visual at all the time. It has to be a balance between the visual and the ear. So the ear is the first and foremost gift. The second one is an internal sense of rhythm, which means you don't have to sit there and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. God, will you stop counting measures? Can't you feel time? I don't have to count measures. I can feel 30. I don't count bars. I mean, if I'm doing a motion picture and it's a very orchestral kind of classical thing, and there's all kinds of violin solos and stuff, I'm going to count measures. I want to know where the hell I am, But what I will do if it's some piece that I'm going to play numerous times, I'm not going to count 273 measures.
No.
I'm just going to put 4 measures before I come in. Oh, the tuba goes right here, and then I'm 4 bars, and then I come in. So I don't have to count all that shit.
You make me feel so much better, Bob, because I'm exactly the same. And the amount of times, like I'm the worst one, someone will turn to me and go, "What bar are we at?" And I'll go, "It's a second time through an 8-bar turnaround now, so 16." You know what I mean? Like it's just I'm just feeling it as we go along. So
yeah. Well, when they ask me what bar I'm at, I say like, Tony's Pub.
Yeah. We got a question here from Matt Roberts who says, what's
Matt,
Bobby?
Doesn't he?
Say that again. Sorry.
Matt Roberts has got a lot of questions.
He
today,
does. Yeah, it's good. He goes, what are Bobby's thoughts on facial hair? The optimal facial hair configuration for trumpet playing.
Well, I mean, why didn't he ask you about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, my facial hair, I just shaved because I was back to work in person today for after a week off. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter to me as long as this is free blowing. It doesn't matter for me. Optimal facial hair. What about yourself?
I don't know about facial hair. I had a student a few days ago who, when the pandemic started, he refused to shave, and he took his first lesson with me, and the camera came on. There's this kid with this god awful like red beard halfway down his belly, and he's got hair all over his lip up here. And I said, you got to watch out that you don't get those hairs under the rim of the mouthpiece because they can hurt. Yeah. I mean, I shaved the middle here, so because I don't want the lip, I don't want any hair in the mouthpiece,
Yeah, and, there is something to be said about having a little leak, isn't there? Like it just gets in the way sometimes, and it's sticking in and it tickles, and yeah.
Hair under the mouthpiece, and you try to squeeze out a high G, it can pull the hair out, and it hurts.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's an individual thing. I don't care what people wear hair. I mean, I've thought about shaving my beard off many times, but my wife says, you're not cutting that beard off. My wife likes it. It reminds her of, she's from Boston.
Oh yeah.
And so it reminds her of an old Gloucester sea captain or something like that.
I mean, you've had multiple beards all through your career, so you've learned to deal with them and not. So, Craig came on and he said it was our pleasure to do that for you and Alan. So that was with the stream. I don't know whether you can go see it. It was on Ronnie Scott's website, YouTube channel. I don't know whether it's streaming anymore, but it's an incredible gig if it is out there. The Craigwell Big Band. Stephen Fudash, sorry if I said that wrong. He has a question for you. He says, what is the most common problem you see in students playing that you have to fix?
Mostly they play too tight. That's the most common thing. They play with their lips too close together, and then they get backed up pressure and so forth.
Yep.
And they have tone production problems because they don't really understand that they have to lower their jaw and open up. Clark Terry showed me a thing years ago that was taught to him and taught to Miles and taught to Rafael Mendez and even Buddy Childers. And the guy's name was Joe Gustat.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a full trumpet player in the St. Louis Symphony from, I think, around 1937 to about 44 or something like that. But he had a thing called spitting rice. And Clark told me, he said, Joe had us take a little handful of uncooked rice, take 1 grain of rice, set it on the tip of your tongue like that, and see how far you could spit it.
Yeah, right.
You do this outdoors, not indoors. The wife will go crazy if you start spitting.
Very true.
You'll have you bending over picking them up, that's for sure. But anyway, so so, and Clark said that, we used to carry a pocket full of uncooked rice and go outside and try to spit it. So now, where that relates to playing the trumpet or any cupped instrument, it's very close to what you're supposed to really be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But so what I do is I take, this is not a pound note. This is our a George. So you put the bill here, and you take. I'll do it sideways so you can see it. It's weird because that camera keeps going backwards. But anyway, I'll take this and I'll pretend I have a piece of rice there, and I'll go like this. Now I'm going to go out here, arm's length. Let me put it where you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great breathing exercise.
Yeah, I bet it would. That's great.
So now, watch this. You take a mouthpiece. Now, here's where a lot of guys do, there's a thing called lip buzzing, which is this. Free buzzing. That's great for exercising these muscles and strengthening the corners in here, but you can't play that way. Nice. So a lot of guys get confused and they go like this, and then you go up here and they go, and it all backs up. And they get a shitty sound or something. So what you do is you do the buzzing, lip buzzing, just for the muscle thing. It's like doing sit-ups, mm-hmm. But you can't do it that way. So then you set the mouthpiece on and you do this. Or if you tighten the corners,
still hitting it. Yeah. Wow.
Now, so you take that. What's this? Trumpet is nothing more than an amplifier for what, and this is the trumpet right here.
Massively, yeah.
That's it. Tone production right here. Amplifier. And if a guy can realize that, you go, oh my God, what? And I always say this because I can tell when my students are starting to really catch on because they always have a big red mark on their forehead.
It's so true, though. Trumpet's not meant to be as hard as some people, make it out to be. And some days for individuals it is, isn't it? So,
yeah, but I mean, it's because most people, I know people who they'll try one method, they'll study with one guy, and he'll give them one method, and then it doesn't work for them. And then they find another teacher, and then he changes everything to another thing.
Yeah.
And after after a few years, they've gone through 7 or 8 different approaches to playing the trumpet, none of which have anything to do with truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of them are just totally full of false information and opinions. And so the whole thing, opinions are okay, but you cannot try to sell it off as a fact.
Of course.
The guy says, "Oh, if you don't play a Bach trumpet, you'll never sound any good." Well, that's, Chet Baker didn't know the difference. Chet Baker would play on a piece of plastic shit and he'd still sound the same.
Yeah, he sounded just like him, didn't he? No matter what he played.
And it doesn't, there are better trumpets than others, but the truth about the equipment, and here's another thing that's really important for people to understand. There's not just one way
Yeah.
to play. There's the science of what has to happen. Muscles are muscles. The human body is based upon a design, and whoever designed it probably had their head up their ass or was smoking some cheap shit when because they would have made the lungs a little bit larger when the guy's born says, "Oh, you're gonna be a trumpet player," give him bigger lungs.
Yeah.
Take away all of the genitals. That'll keep him off the street.
Yeah.
And but the thing about it is that if a guy is playing classical music, he has certain, like, based on the genre of music. A lead player and a jazz player don't approach things. Chet Baker and Maurice Andre don't approach the trumpet the same way.
Of course.
But they all have to have, their lips have to feel right. Their breathing has to be supported. They have to be controlling the airstream as it goes into tone. The sound that they make on the instrument, Chet Baker didn't want to sound like Maurice Andre on a piccolo.
Yeah.
Vice versa. So you have genres of playing, and once you decide who you are, if you're playing in a Hofmusik band in Bavaria, it's not going to be the same as a mariachi guy in Mexico or a guy playing in the symphony orchestra in Birmingham.
Yeah, exactly.
And so once you get the foundation together and you pick your genre, then all your decisions about tone production, about how you're going to control things, even what equipment you choose to play, is going to be decided which pathway you've chosen. Somebody like, when those of us that do studio music as a career, where we're sitting there doing television and movies and rock and roll records and Burger King commercials and every piece of junk in the world, most of which is junk. Yeah. Most of it has very little musical value. It's just garbage, most of it, But you still have to have an eclectic approach to the instrument. When Wayne Bergeron, I've told this story many times, that when Wayne before he was the famous Wayne Bergeron, when he was studying with me, he opened his case one day at a lesson. He had a pouch with 14 mouthpieces in it.
Wow.
Good. And I said to him, "Do you play them all?" He says, "Well, not every day, but the idea you go to work and you flip the page and it says, a salsa trick. I have to play a salsa solo on this track. Yeah. Switch mouthpiece. Don't sit there with a 1C mouthpiece and expect to get a hit. I mean, the point about it is you have to change the tools. I talked to Bud Herseth about this. I've told this story. I had dinner with Bud Herseth one time. I asked him, I said, "It's a stupid question, I know, but do you ever change mouthpieces?" He says, "Of course I do." He said, "When we play Brahms and Beethoven and stuff, I play my 5A. And when we play Wagner or Shostakovich or anything like it's a little more marcato and maestoso, I go to my 5D and it gives a quicker response, a little brighter sound." And I figure if the king of the trumpet, Bud Herseth, can change mouthpieces, so can we all.
Amen to that. It's true, though.
And it depends. I mean, everybody has the right to make their own decisions about this, but you want to learn how to make decisions and not make foolish ones,
Correct.
Rather than base them on something that has to do with sensibility and with science and stuff like that, and
I've met a
big
few.
issues.
Yeah, I've met a few people in my time, teachers wise. Obviously I didn't go back to them, but when I was growing up. But yeah, I went to this guy and he literally wanted to change my entire embouchure and put me on a 1 1/4 C, and I was like, okay. And it just, in my mind, I just didn't want to learn off someone that was just so stubborn that, he wasn't going to teach me if I didn't do that. So I just, because I believed in growing up, I believed, again, right tool for the right job, but
Well,
yeah.
my 7th grade band director, the classical guy I was telling you about, he who hated jazz and tried to stop me from playing jazz, he took my mouthpiece away from me when I was 13 years old because I was playing so well on it. And he looked at it and he went, "Ah, a cheater." And I never have to this day, I've never seen that mouthpiece ever again. And he made me do the same thing, a 1 1/4 C.
Yeah.
And I couldn't play worth a damn after that for a while.
Yeah.
And I thought, what the hell did this guy do to me,
Yeah.
And I started looking around, and there was another trumpet player a little older than me that had a bunch of mouthpieces, and he helped me find something better. But there's a lot of the teachers, they want you to play their horn, they want you to play their mouthpieces, they want you to buy their book. And I know there was one teacher over here whose name will go unmentioned because I don't want to put any bad shit out on him, but he charged a hell of a lot of money for students. He insisted when you first came to him that you bring enough for 4 lessons, and you had to buy 4 hours immediately. And then he warned you, when you study with me, you don't look at any other books by any other systems, any other people. You don't talk to anybody else about anything else. Wow. You do only what I do. Well, that sounds like Christianity or something,
It sounds, yeah, it's some kind of cult anyway.
Yeah. Good God. You tell me, what the hell are you talking about?
I'm guessing he's trying to expect that every human being is exactly the same, which is not true. So.
Well, the truth of it, he's a very insecure guy.
Right.
And he's just control people and boost his own insecure ego,
Yeah.
And he's long gone around anyway now. His books float around still, but I had his main book and I got rid of it. I didn't do a funeral fire on it, but some kid wanted it, so I said, get it out of my house.
Fair one. We might have cost someone a bit of money here because he says, "Well, that settles it. I need to buy more mouthpieces."
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Mike. make sure you don't spend all your money on them.
Comes over. I have about 400 mouthpieces, which I'm going to sell. So
there you go.
He's welcome to have all these. Let's see what I've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 right here. Even this one. Have you seen this one?
Oh, wow. No.
Oh, see that.
Wow. Look at that. That's heavy duty.
This is what's called a crossover mouthpiece. And it's the size of it.
That's crazy. Is that for trombone playing trumpet? So, trumpet playing trombone?
No, watch. It fits in a trumpet.
Yeah, right. Huh.
And do you know what it's for?
I wouldn't have a clue.
For people who have done damage to their facial muscles. Bell's palsy and focal dystonia. I've had 27 Bell's palsy patients come to me.
Wow.
Over the years. Doc Severinsen had Bell's palsy in 19. Yeah, he had it. He recovered fully in 6 weeks. That son of a gun.
Holy smokes, that's impressive.
A big mouthpiece like this, it changes the musculature, and it helps you rebuild the muscles quicker. A lot of guys do trombone mouthpieces for Bell's palsy, things like that. And then I always have things like this, the
visualizers, yeah.
Those are valuable. And then I love these Kelly mouthpieces, the
Yeah, I saw you
plastic.
playing a few of them. You sound great on them.
Well, I love them. They work fine for me. I love the sound and so forth.
Yeah, I got asked to review a Swiss made brand called Brand mouthpieces, and to be fair, that they're the first plastic mouthpieces I played, and they were super comfortable. So
Yeah, I've got a here. They sent me a little set of them.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, they're good. Yeah, there's a lot of people doing that these days. You know, the good thing is they're good for kids,
yeah,
for one thing, and secondly, they're good for guys like us, so we can stick it in our pocket and go buzzing in the car or
yeah,
something. And if you drop a plastic mouthpiece, it just bounces and you put it back in your pocket.
yeah.
It doesn't dent or anything like that, you know. So
It's
they're very good for that. And I'm a real I pretty much tell people, you know, if you don't sit down and buzz on a mouthpiece, you're going to never develop a good embouchure, because too many people, when I tell them, you know, I say, you know, what's really wrong with your practicing is the trumpet needs to be in the case,
yeah.
you know,
Put it
because
down.
they take the horn out and they're always worried about, oh, my bell, my slides, and my valve oil, and oh, is that a dent in my bell or something, you know? Put the horn in the case and sit there and do things like, you know, that'll get your chops working. And
Oh yeah.
stick the trumpet on the end of that mouthpiece to scare the neighbors.
I think that's probably a good one for a lot of guys that are still in lockdown as well, because in the
Oh,
end, you know, like they're probably annoying their neighbors by now. So yeah,
well, I think the best things you can do is just working your chops with the mouthpiece, you know, because it doesn't. I'm not saying never play the horn, but the mouthpiece is really the more critical issue, because you're not going to work, you know, you're not going to work West End or Carnegie Hall on a mouthpiece. But the point about it is, if you can't develop an embouchure relationship with the mouthpiece, then the horn is not going to
yeah.
amplify anything but garbage. You know, you have a garbage tone production mechanism. The trumpet will just make that louder and let everybody know how poorly.
Exactly. Craig's come back and he says, "Can I have your Cat Anderson mouthpiece, please?"
No, you have that.
Craig also had a question from earlier. He says, "For a friend who has some scar tissue, could you tell the story of West Side Story where you split your lip, please?"
Well, that's a long story,
Oh,
but
okay.
well, you know, the thing is, I have a big scar on my lip.
hmm
You can kind of see it there. You
Yep.
know, it's a bit ugly, but that's West Side Story right there.
That's a memory
And
to have.
what happened is we couldn't get a good take. We recorded 4 nights in the club. We played 3 sets a night. We played ended the first and third set with West Side Story every night.
hmm
And the biggest problem was that Jimmy Trimble, the lead trombone player, on somewhere, he kept smacking notes and cracking, and we couldn't get a good take. And there were other problems too, but I can't blame it all on Jimmy. But so on a Monday, with the fifth day, we went into Pacific Jazz Studios, and we did 21 starts on West Side Story, trying to get a good take of it,
hmm
you know. And I just kept pounding and pounding, and I didn't know the yoga breath at those days, and
Yeah.
playing I was playing a little bit too much in the red, you know. And so the way I used to play, I'd stick the horn up there, like kind of like,
Yeah.
and I did that, and it did a blood blister.
No way.
Then the blood blister broke open, and it sprayed blood all over the music and shit. My lip split open, and then I kept trying to play on it, and it just got worse and worse and worse. By the time we got to New York, I couldn't hardly play at all, and I had to get subs to come in, Ernie Royal
Yeah.
and people come sub my chair. But when we were touring in England, I used to have to go down. We'd be down in Brighton and places down on the South Coast, you know. And my wife and I were talking about this last night. We go out with pop bottles and things and fill them up with brine out of the seawater, and then bring them out on the bus. And I have about 6 bottles of seawater and it's stinking up the bus. But I was splashing brine on my lips to try to close, because it's very good.
Yep.
Brine is good for closing up wounds and stuff like that, you know. And so, God, I mean, I played on split lips for so many years. It's like unbelievable. But I finally, and then when I learned the yoga breath, I'd never have cut my lips ever since that. I mean, everything. I started playing from down in the belly area instead of up here.
Yeah, instead of muscle in it.
Yeah, and that's not that yoga breath is, the whole thing has you really playing from down around the umbilical area, around the navel, you know.
Well,
And you
just on that, Bobby. Sorry to interrupt you. We obviously had a earlier question. Now I don't want to. There's a, for all our listeners out there. There's a great video on YouTube where Bobby has already gone with this for through the yoga breath step by step. And it's a great video. Look it up on YouTube. Just put in Bobby and Bobby Shew yoga breath. But just quickly for our listeners right now, could you just just quickly go through it?
Oh boy.
No. Don't. It doesn't. Yeah, it's up to you. It's
well. There are 6 steps to taking the breath and utilizing it. You know, the first 3 steps are intake of air.
Mm-hmm.
I'll scoot back a little bit and tilt the film. So, okay. Can you believe this 80-year-old body? Can you do that?
Oh, by the way, everyone, it's Bobby's birthday tomorrow. So
look at here. So right here's my belly button. All right, there. That's what they call the core area, or in yoga they call it the hara point, Hara.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first step of the breath is to take a small breath intake, but move this slightly forward.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Everything has a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So the diaphragm is sitting here, and when I push forward, the diaphragm goes like that.
Yeah.
Now, why would we want the diaphragm to do that? Because the lungs are sitting on top of it here. And when the diaphragm goes down, so the lungs, if you're going to withstand a punch,
yep.
That's step 5, let your shoulders down. Then 6,
release. Yeah.
What? So 1, 2, 3, 4, tighten down. And I'm firm here. When
Support.
I'm firm here, that place down there in the umbilical area, that's the focal point of supporting and controlling the compression of your air.
Yeah.
And if you control the compression of your air, the compression equals velocity. And the velocity of the air is what determines the dynamic and the register that you're going to play in.
Thanks so much for going through that. I know that's one of the most requested questions of you, Bobby. So I'm very happy that you just quickly went through it for us. That's amazing. But if you do want to break down a longer version of it, there's a great video on YouTube of Bobby doing that. So thanks very much for that.
College in Corpus Christi, you know, piece of paper or something, you have to play from down here. If you don't, it all moves up into your face and your neck and your head, and you're playing from up here. And the next thing you know, you're pinching your lips too tight together. And there your problems emanate from that for the most part.
Yeah, of course.
Pretty consistent.
What's something out there for all our, amateur to professional, that would be something that you could go back and tell yourself to do now? Like something that you would change, like when you were growing up and something. What's one thing that, or even a couple of things that you really went, you know what, this really changed me into the person I am today, apart from the yoga breath?
Reading. I think one of the things that I'm really sad about is that people don't read enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's if you look at the world and the conditions that we have, not only the pandemic, but look what we're going through in the States with all the after we had the orange baboon in the office there in Washington, and what a nincompoop this guy is. He says, I never read a book in my life. I fucking believe that. I mean, probably not even read like Dr. Seuss even,
Exactly.
But the thing about it is without, we have so many problems. There's so much confusion and misunderstandings of who we are and what we are. And a lot of it is just based on wrong information, superstition, and the educational system is guilty in our country. It's not as bad as in your country, but in some countries it's worse than ours, and some better. But when the educational system has got its intentions are not really to make you and me smart, intelligent, skeptical people, challenging. It wants to drive us into like a semi-zombie-like state where we'll that one right there.
Yeah, the little one, yeah.
Those are all dictionaries.
Oh, wow.
In all kinds of languages. I mean, I have about 7 or 8 different German ones and different ones in Japanese and French and it's Spanish and Portuguese. And I'm very interested in language because I travel the world and I don't speak any language perfectly at all. But when I go to Japan, I don't want to just go to McDonald's. I want to be able to read a Japanese menu in a sushi bar. I want to be able to find what's the difference between the men's and the ladies' toilet, and I don't want to walk into the wrong one. And so the point being that I read, and I always have at least 3 books going. I read a lot of books about science and stuff. Carl Sagan is one of my favorite authors, because he's a brilliant scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really enamored with science in every case because it's so much truth to it, I don't read a lot of novels about going hunting and stuff like that, or, I don't romance novels. I'm too old for that. My wife would find me reading about sex, So, but at the point being, I just wish the world would become better educated, and until they do, we're going to have problems.
Yeah.
Because you can't, without an education, you're going to make wrong decisions. It's a matter of being ethical, making decisions. It's not following predetermined rules, commandments, and things of that sort. It really needs to be, people need to learn how to think more clearly. And if you study the history of civilization, one thing that shocks an awful lot of these people like the white supremacists that are making a mess of the United States right now, is that what they don't realize that 1.8 million years ago, when the first Neanderthals and Homo erectus and Homo sapiens, which we are now, if you go back to the beginnings of the evolution of the human race, they didn't know about science. They didn't know there was such a thing. So they created superstitions. Somebody said, what's that thing? Oh, let's call it a cloud,
Yeah.
What is it? Can you eat it? Oh, probably. And well, what's it doing up there, Oh, you have to pray to it. And if you pray to it, it'll give you water. Oh, you mean like the rain dance that the Indians do? Well, the one thing is, if you watch the news and look the weather report, you'll know that the weatherman is going to tell you that on Thursday it's going to rain. So if you go out Thursday morning and start going, see, it rained, just I knew. How about the meteorologist?
Yeah.
So my whole point is, I just hate living in a world of of people who refuse to read books and stuff like that and educate themselves. I buy books for my students, and when they read a good book, I'll go to Amazon and buy 10 used copies of it and just disperse them around the kid. And some of them say, "Man, I don't like to read." I say, "Well, I'm going to try to change that. I warn you."
That's
And I do.
yeah. That's I personally need to read more, so I'm glad you you reminded me. Yeah, definitely something I think
Well,
we all could
I
take
mean,
on board.
turn off the TV and turn off the TV and read a book, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. I
Why
have to
not?
apologise, Bobby, because we had an Australian join us, and that was a while ago as well, and that would have been super early for him. Gianni Marinucci came on and said, "Lots of love from Australia." And he said, "Could Bobby talk about the problem ego represents to musicians, especially in improvisers?"
Well, a lot of times your people are trying to make people like them.
Yeah.
That's an insecurity problem. And I've written a thing many years ago uh, that says there's two things I've learned. There's two things you can do with music. You can impress people or you can touch people. So when you put the horn up to your face, think about what your intention is. Are you trying to make people like you, or are you just playing the music honestly and humbly from within yourself? And, and people will go, "Oh my God, did you hear how he played that ballad?" They've got tears. They may not know your name, but at least you were honest about the performance.
Yeah.
When people have an ego is self-importance, and it's a manifestation of insecurity. And we grow up in a society that has a lot of peer pressure, a lot of grades system. What grade did you get on your report card?
Mm.
I always say when I go into surgery, I want to see the surgeon's report card. I don't want a guy picking up a scalpel that made a C minus or a D on his final test. You're not touching my neck, with that thing. So the point about it is that that's the big problem when you always feel like that you have to have people to like your playing. You're going to make bad decisions about your playing. You're not going to find your own voice. You're not going to be honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
And humility is a very important thing to understand. That I wrote an article recently called "New Freedom," which has to do with an pandemic that I was practicing. And I don't like to sit and play by myself. I don't like to be honest with you. I hate to, not hate, that's the wrong word. That's too severe. But I don't get the great joy from playing with Jamie Aebersold play-alongs.
Yeah.
I sit there and play, you know, and I've had students say, "Well, I hate to play with them too because of course they don't react. There's nobody there. It's a recording, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Beings on that CD." But the point being that for me, what I like is playing off of other people.
Mm-hmm.
Playing with somebody. It's a sense of community, even if it's only one other person. There's a bass player that lives 3 blocks from me, and when he came, sometimes he just comes over and the two of us play.
Yeah.
We call up a tune, and he plays the bass line, and I just blow on it.
Yeah.
And at least I'm playing off of him, and he's playing off of me, and that is much more. But anyway, so I can't always do that. So during the pandemic, I've been practicing, and one day out here, I learned something from Tim Higgins many years ago about just closing your eyes and playing whatever pops into your head, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And don't edit anything or don't question anything. And that takes a lot of balls, I guess you might say, to do that. And so I started doing it. Well, I started trying it years ago, but I never got into doing it the way Tim does. But I started doing it several months ago, and all of a sudden I'm playing, and I said, "You know what? I'm the only audience that matters.
Yeah.
I don't, and if I don't ever go on the road and play another public concert or performance ever again, I'm still okay because I'm the only audience I need. I need to make sure that I'm happy with my playing. I don't give a shit whether anybody else likes it or not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That
definitely.
takes a lot of that's a hard place to come to for a lot of people, you know, to where you and I realize that music is a performance thing, a communicative thing, and we do need an audience. But when you're trying to find your voice, you can't be looking at the audience liking you, or the audience can't be a necessary part of you finding your voice. You have to find your voice on your own terms,
Yeah.
honestly, and then say, folks, sorry about it, but this is who I am. Take it or leave it, you know? And if they don't like you, then that's fine. You know, not everybody likes, pizza, or not everybody likes cherry pie, but that's okay. We don't need to get rid of all the pizza parlors or cherry pie bakeries, just because some few people don't like it. The thing about it is, well, I know a lot of people that hate jazz because they don't understand what it is.
Massively.
They have no clue. They say, "Why don't you play the same way every time?"
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember what I played.
Yeah, it's like people get frustrated when you say, "Well, I was just making it up," and they go, "What?" But
I
yeah,
know, and I've talked to some what I thought were some very intelligent classical musicians, and this one lady was an oboe player with the Munich Philharmonic, and she says, "I don't see what's a big deal about you guys improvising all the time." She says, "Just play the melody the way the man wrote it. Have respect for him, you know." And I said, "Yeah, but see, the game is to see if we can create. It goes into the cerebrum of your brain and stimulates a part of your brain that you don't use
hmm
when you're worried about missing notes, or when you're doing your balancing your checkbook or something like that. If you're not using the creative part of your brain, you're not it doesn't generate the right things, endorphins and things in your body, which help your health. Actually, they do.
yeah,
So the whole point about it is that I couldn't convince this woman. She just said, "I just think it would be, if so and so, Jerome Kern writes a tune, you should just play it the way Jerome wrote it and leave it at that." What an ego you have to go think you can do something better than Jerome Kern. I thought, God, I wouldn't sleep with that woman for $1,000,000.
it's so true.
Uh,
Bobby, I know you've got a lesson coming up, so I don't want to keep you all night. I could literally talk to you all
I've,
night about
I've
everything.
been on the herd before he comes on.
Yeah.
If you feel like you want to keep going, that's fine. It's up to the.
Well, I've got this little. Someone's asked a question about whether you play Scott Bell book. So let me just get into this segment of the show. So, what's on your stand, Bobby Shew? Is there anything that you're diving into these days, books wise? Is there stuff that you can recommend for us to go and see or play?
No, I don't. I don't go. I don't work out of books at all.
Oh, there you go. That's great.
No, not. I mean, not music books. I mean, I've got. There's a million of them on the shelf back there.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
There's 150 trumpet method books back there, all
Wow.
unused.
Every single one of them.
I've opened the. I bought. I didn't even buy an Arvin book until about 25 years ago,
Wow.
and I opened it up. I'd seen him before, of course. I know it was there. I'm not living in like a hermit out in the woods, but every time, well, I thought, well, I should maybe buy an Arvin book. So I found one in a music store one day. I said, oh, fuck, I'll take it home. And I opened it up and I went, I know all these notes, but they're in the wrong order. And I just can't see myself sitting there doing that. Now, here's one thing that's worth saying is Clifford Brown, he played out of the Irons book.
Yeah.
That was the one that he worked with Lowry, his teacher. But Clifford, and there's tapes. Many of the people who are on the line here now have probably heard some of the Clifford Brown practice tapes. But if you take something like the Clark exercise, instead of playing that kind of stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And Clifford didn't do it that way because that he had no use for that kind of articulation, you know. Now the notes and the things, why do we have those things? They teach you some fluidity within a key, you know.
Yeah.
So that's fine. So Clifford would do it like this, you know. You know,
Yeah.
you follow what I mean? So you can use those things, but you have to change the articulation and the sound and all of the characteristics of the genre that you're playing in, you know?
Yeah.
So one of the stupidest things that I see bebop players, you know, young guys that are having a career as a jazz player, but then they go to practice and they open up a classical book. And what the hell are you doing in that book? And I tell people, like, look, you know, I don't go out on the weekend and get a couple of buckets of golf balls and drive golf balls. Why? Because I don't play golf. Why would I want to drive golf? I don't own a baseball glove either. You know, I don't buy a saddle because I don't own a horse. Everything has to have a practical application, it seems to me. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the studio guys, they have to be more, you know, eclectic in their choices and more capable of doing a lot of different things. Then, therefore, they, you know, Wayne Bergeron, for instance, I remember years and years ago where, you know, he had taken some lessons with Boyd Hood and some other really good classical players, you know, but he didn't really have a full classical background. He wasn't like a Tom Stevens or a Philip Smith or, you know, a Håkan Hardenberger or somebody like that. But I remember, you know, in the studio, you get hit once in a while, like I did with the double tonguing story, where you have to sound like a classical guy in there. And even though you may have just done a session that morning of Love Boat or something, and now you got to be a classical guy in the afternoon. So you switch mouthpieces. But so Wayne, I remember him going into a practice mode, and this guy, he has one of the most amazing work ethics for practicing that I've ever seen. I know a few other students like that too, but Wayne went in, he decided he was going to bone up on his classical playing, and then it was about 6 or 8 weeks later, he gave me a CD or a cassette. I think it was a CD of him playing like Histoire du Soldat, you know.
Yeah.
And I went, holy crap! Listen to this guy. 6 to 8 weeks later, he's become like a virtuoso classical player.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, wow, yeah, Wayne, all right, you know. So my whole point is that we're all different, and once you find out who you are and what the pathway is, then that helps you map out what your practice routines are and so forth. And you don't want to waste valuable practice time doing something that has no application.
Of course.
You know,
It's one of those things where someone's always said to me, obviously you do want to sound good sometimes, but if you sound good in a practice room, you're probably not achieving much. So,
Exactly right. And this happens on school campuses a lot where they have practice rooms and the kids don't want to sound shitty. So they go in there and play only the stuff that is going to impress the people that can hear them down the hallway. And then they go home and they still got the problems with their chops, you know.
So just really quickly, are you a warm up, warm down guy?
Warm up, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Warm down. The only thing I do in warming down, I don't do a routine. Billy Chase used to do a warm down thing he got from a guy in Boston. I can't remember the teacher's name, but after the gig, when he's tired, he goes into a room and starts doing all kinds of slurring and arpeggios and stuff. And I put, you know, what's his name? Vince Chikowitz, who is the principal classical trumpet player in Chicago, not with the symphony, you know, but with you know who he is, Vince Chikowitz, famous guy. He said, the best warm up I know of is to put the horn in the case and go to the bar and have a drink.
Yeah.
You know, what I do is when I finish playing, I flutter, cheek flutter. You know, not just lip fluttering, like, because that doesn't get any blood out here. But and I do that, and it replenishes the blood supply in my face. That's the warm down. That's all you need to do. It washes the lactate out of the muscles and replenishes the blood supply.
That's great.
Oxygen and blood sugar into the muscles. And then put the horn in the case. You don't need to play anything. You just need to replenish the blood supply. But some people, you can't convince them of that. I don't care what people do. It doesn't matter to me what people do. If they want to be stupid, that's fine with me, you know. My job is to try to make people smarter. And sometimes I remember a lady, I've told this story many times. Yeah, I love it. She was a lady philosopher by the name of Terry Cole Whitaker from San Diego. And she would come on Sunday mornings and we'd all get up. I get up to watch the NFL games and stuff like that, you know. And, but they always have all these pain in the ass evangelists on television in the mornings, you know, trying to get you to buy them a new jet airplane or something like that, you know, and talking the bullshit gospel stuff. And I thought, guys, got to be something here to watch. I'm going through the remote. And I found this one lady, nice looking lady, about in the early 40s, you know, philosopher, not a sectarian religion or anything, you know. And she said, one thing, everything she said was so sensible. But and she didn't talk about angels and heaven and hell and stuff like that, you know. It was just sensibility. But she said, there's an old saying that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. She says, but I would say this to you. You may not be able to make him drink, but you can walk his ass around the pond until he gets thirsty. I always remembered that. I went, yeah, that's it.
That's brilliant.
So sometimes in teaching, you know, you try to smarten up a guy, and sometimes he's going to just be stupid.
Yeah.
And so then eventually he's going to call the house and say, my chops. I said, did you flutter? Oh, flutter. I forgot to do that. Well, sorry. You know, and that's what I'm saying. Sometimes it takes, I won't mention names, but I have some students who became brilliant, really good, well-known players. But boy, in the early days, you couldn't, I mean, they were the horse you had to walk around the pond, you know, because they, I don't know, for whatever reason, they were not paying close attention, not remembering things, you know, smoking too much of the weed and so forth. And then, you know, then forgetting to use the wedge breath, they rushed through their warm-up. They didn't do the warm-up this way I told them. And they got problems. I say, okay, not my fault.
Exactly. Just talking about some problems. Have you had people ever come to you with focal dystonia? And for some people out there that are maybe afraid of it, is there signs that you know of that just keep your eye out for?
Well, focal dystonia is a neurological breakdown, of course, and we don't really know what causes it. It's the same sort of thing with Bell's palsy. You know, I've had numerous people. I said to you earlier, I've had 27 people with Bell's palsy come to me over the years, you know, and the only two that I have not cured, I could have cured them, but they decided, well, I've played enough. Maybe it's time to quit. I said, no, we can get this. Nah, I'm thinking about, you know, the wife wants me to stay around the house a little more. So I'm saying, well, you coward, you know?
Yeah.
And there's been two people who were quite good players. And one of them especially was British. very absolute dear brotherly friend of mine from my heart and soul. But he just got an attitude about not touring and not pounding anymore, and he just decided to stay around and teach and stuff. And I'm not going to say who it is.
No, of course.
But and it broke my heart that because he was so frustrated with the Bell's palsy that he was impatient with the resolution to it. It doesn't. It in most cases, Bell's palsy will go away within a year naturally. But who wants to take a year? Doc Severinsen got rid of it in 6 weeks. I've had a couple of students that did it in about 6, 7, 8 weeks, full recovery. And then some of them, it takes 6 months or something, but depends on the degree of the focal dystonia is a tough one, because what you have to do is, like, during the period of when you're trying to recover these things, there's very little playing that you can do because things don't work. But I've had to sit down and get very creative and think of some drills, isometric drills I can do on facial muscles to get people, like holding in the corners like this and then putting their fingers in. But while I'm squeezing here to try to the brain where I want the muscles to tighten. But focal dystonia, like these nerves in and around the facial muscles, they just fire wrong, and they don't let the muscle isometrically grip. And God, it's and you go to neurologists, they don't know what the hell's wrong. They don't know what I've got things where I've got facial things with moisture pads and stuff like that, washcloths with extremely moist hot water, and then wring it out and like a poultice on there, to loosen up, heat the muscle and nerve so that they separate, because they tend to get tight like this. If you can make them breathe a little bit better, you can get better blood flow through the facial nerves and muscles. And the blood flow is the critical thing. Blood is the body's natural healing element, and flush it through the muscles and stuff. It helps. There's all kinds of stuff, I've known people who get electric vibrators and run all over their face with it, but you're always going around looking for batteries or a place to plug it in,
Yeah.
And the fluttering is one of the most valuable things in the world to do with that, And then mouthpiece fuzzing. That's why things like this mouthpiece that we looked at earlier, this thing here, that's what that's for doing focal dystonia, Bell's palsy, facial neurological breakdowns, and it's helpful, like a thing like that.
Yeah, massively. And thanks so much for diving into some of that for us, because it is something that we all not try to avoid talk about, but people are a bit scared to talk about, because these things happen. I've had very close friends of mine deal with Bell's palsy and focal dystonia, and one's still fighting to come back, and one did make it back. So, I will definitely be referring some of those guys to you, to hopefully maybe you can help them out a bit more, because you've had to deal with it before. So
I want to try to help people out, The thing about it is that you can't trust all of the things that Mark Twain, who's wrote like, Tom Sawyer and some fun kind of books for kids and stuff. But Mark was a great philosopher in many ways, but he said one time, never trust everything you read, including what I write, So, but you can go to Google and type in focal dystonia, and you're going to get tons of references and all kinds of opinions. But don't buy into everything just because you read it. I think skepticism is a beautiful gift. To be skeptical about things. Don't just buy into every little piece of shit that people throw at you, And I tell students, I said, if you take a lesson with me, have the courage to at least challenge the materials. and try them. If you and if I say to do this, I want you to say why.
Yeah.
And I will show you exactly why, and I will give you the scientific fact that underlies it. And therefore, you're getting the truth. I have no reason to lie to anybody. You know, why would I do that? If there's not enough Pinocchios already in the world, for God's sake, you know, we've got millions of them.
Yeah.
In America, they started at the White House and ran right through, you know, and our whole government is based on so much falsehoods and stuff. Even the people in the Congress and the Senate and stuff like that, they're afraid to be honest.
Yeah.
Because they could lose their job. They're more interested in their job and getting reelected than they are in helping you or me or my family or my neighbors. They don't give a shit about us.
Yeah, it's very true. Well, Bobby, I don't want to keep you any longer because in the end, I'd like you to have a bit of a break before you start teaching again, because I know that you do a lot of teaching every day. I can't thank you enough for joining and sharing your wisdom with us. Again, we could talk to you all the time, just about life in general and your infinite wisdom with dealing with loads of stuff that have come up. And obviously your playing career is just awe-inspiring. It really is.
Well, thank you.
So yeah, hopefully in 6 months' time or something down the line, maybe we can get together again and have a chat and see how things are and if you're up for it. So, but
Yeah, I always like to talk about the stuff I love, and so, you know, and to all of the people that joined in here, you know, Craig and Johnny Marnucci and all of this, and a lot of people who I didn't know, but thank you for the honor and for attending and so forth. I hope something I've said rings a bell and helps somebody out in some small way, you know. So anyway, thank you very much, Benny. Thanks for this opportunity.
It's honestly, it's been all of our pleasure, Bobby, and we can only wish you all the best, especially tomorrow for your birthday. Happy birthday. I hope it's an amazing day. And yeah, I can't thank you enough. So for everyone out there, thank you so much for joining. If you ever want to have lessons with Bobby, do not be afraid. Go to his website. I'm going to do it myself. So go to his website, book some lessons, get it in there. And yeah, honestly, tap into what Bobby has to give because it's incredible, as you just heard. So thanks again, Bobby.
Thank you, man. Thank you all very much.
Everyone
Bye.
out there, stay safe and love your work.